If one person keeps returning to your mind over and over again, understand this. Your soul is trying to speak to you. Not everything that revisits your thoughts is about them. Sometimes it's about you. You see, the mind does not cling to faces randomly. It holds on to meaning. It holds on to moments that shifted you, cracked you open, or showed you something you were not ready to see at the time. When someone keeps appearing in your thoughts, it doesn't always mean you need to go back to them. Sometimes it means you need to go back to yourself, to the part of you that was awakened, wounded, or changed because of them. We often think memory is about nostalgia, but memory is really about an unfinished business. Not with people, but with emotions. Maybe that person saw you before you learned how to see yourself. Maybe they challenged you when you were comfortable staying small. Maybe they left, and in their absence, they revealed a truth you had been avoiding. Understand this, people come into our lives for seasons, reasons, and revelations. And when a lesson is not fully learned, the teacher returns. Not always in physical form, but in thought. That recurring thought is not asking you to chase, it is asking you to reflect. Ask yourself, and what did I feel when I was with them? Tan, what part of me was alive then? Tan, what part of me was afraid? Tan, what truth did I silence? Because the mind circles what the heart has not resolved. Sometimes the person represents love you didn't believe you deserved. Sometimes they represent boundaries you didn't protect. Sometimes they represent courage you didn't choose. And here is the most important truth. Not everyone who stays in your mind belongs in your future. Some people return in thought so you can finally release them with understanding, not resentment. So you can say, see now what you came to show me. When you gain the lesson, the thought loosens its grip. When you heal the wound, the memory softens. When you choose growth, the attachment fades. So if one person keeps returning to your mind, don't judge yourself. Don't romanticize it. Don't run from it. Listen, because clarity doesn't arrive through force. It arrives through awareness. And once you understand why they keep returning, you will finally be free, not from them, but from the part of you that was waiting to be healed. When one person keeps returning to your mind again and again, understand this first and foremost, it is not random, it is not accidental, and it is not meaningless. The human mind does not fixate without reason. Your thoughts are intelligent messengers, carrying information from parts of you that may not yet have found words. What repeats is trying to be recognized. Many people believe that thinking about someone repeatedly means desire, love, or attachment. Sometimes that is true, but very often it goes much deeper. Repetition in thought is a signal, a message asking for attention. It is the mind's way of saying, there is something here you have not fully understood. Your brain is designed to release what is complete and return to what is unresolved. If a situation, emotion, or experience ends without clarity, your mind keeps replaying it, hoping you will finally see what you missed. That person becomes a symbol, a doorway back to an inner conversation you postponed. This is why logic alone cannot stop these thoughts. You may tell yourself, I should be over this, or this makes no sense anymore. Yet the mind does not listen to commands, it listens to awareness. Until you understand the message, the signal stays active. Often, the person you keep thinking about represents a moment of awakening. They may have reflected a version of yourself you were just beginning to discover. Stronger, more alive, more honest, or more vulnerable. The mind returns to them not because of who they were, but because of who you were becoming around them. Sometimes the signal is emotional. Maybe you felt seen for the first time or rejected in a way that touched an old wound. Maybe you experienced hope, excitement, or loss more deeply than before. Strong emotions carve deep pathways in the mind, and until those emotions emotions are processed, the thoughts return like echoes. It is important to understand that signals are not instructions. Just because a thought repeats does not mean you must act on it. Not every signal is asking you to reconnect. Some are asking you to reflect. Growth begins when you stop reacting to the thought and start listening to it. Ask yourself calmly, without judgment, what is this thought pointing toward? Is it showing you unmet needs, unspoken words, unclaimed boundaries, or unexpressed truth? Very often, the mind uses a familiar face to draw your attention to something internal that needs healing. Coincidences feel random, but signals feel persistent. They show up in quiet moments in stillness when distractions fall away. That is because the deeper self speaks softly, but repeatedly. If you ignore it, it returns. If you suppress it, it grows louder. Once you recognize the signal and honor its meaning, the thought begins to lose its power. Awareness dissolves obsession. Understanding replaces confusion. And slowly, the mind releases what it no longer needs to repeat. So when one person keeps returning to your mind, do not label it as weakness or longing. See it as intelligence at work guiding you inward. Because when you understand the signal, you reclaim control, clarity, and peace. When a person continues to appear in your thoughts long after their physical presence has faded, understand this truth. The mind is not holding on without reason. It is carrying what the heart has not yet healed. Memory is not always about the past. It is about pain, attachment, meaning, and unfinished emotional business. The heart experiences life first. It feels joy, loss, connection, and disappointment long before the mind tries to explain it. When emotions are fully felt and understood, they pass through us. But when emotions are suppressed, rushed, or ignored, they do not disappear, they wait. And the mind becomes the place where they resurface. This is why certain people stay with us mentally. They are tied to emotions we did not process when we should have. Maybe you were too strong to cry, too busy to grieve, or too afraid to speak your truth. So the heart held the weight quietly, and the mind now replays the memory, asking for resolution. Healing is not forgetting. Healing is integration. The mind remembers not to torture you, but to protect you. It is trying to bring awareness to a wound that still needs care. Every repeated thought is an invitation to feel what you once avoided. Often, the pain is not about the person themselves. It is about how they made you feel about yourself. Perhaps you felt unworthy, abandoned, unseen, or not enough. Or perhaps you felt deeply valued and then suddenly lost that feeling. The mind clings to those emotional extremes because they shaped your self-perception. The heart heals through acknowledgement, not denial. When you tell yourself, it didn't hurt that much, or I'm fine now, while something inside you still aches, the mind keeps reminding you that healing has not yet happened. Silence does not heal wounds, honesty does. Sometimes the unhealed part is love. Love that was never expressed, never received, or never returned. Love that had no closure. The heart does not understand endings without meaning, so it holds on, hoping the mind will one day make sense of it. At other times, the wound is regret for what you said or what you did not say, regret for staying too long or leaving too soon. Regret becomes a loop, replaying the same person because they represent a moment you wish you could rewrite. Healing begins when you stop resisting the memory and start meeting it with compassion. Ask yourself, what emotion did I never allow myself to feel? What truth did I silence to survive? What part of me was hurt and never comforted? When you allow yourself to feel without judgment, the heart begins to soften. Tears, understanding, acceptance, and forgiveness are not signs of weakness. They are signs of release. As the heart heals, the mind no longer needs to remind you. This is why, over time, healed memories lose their emotional charge. You can remember without pain. You can think without longing. You can recall without being pulled backward. The memory becomes a story, not a wound. So if one person keeps returning to your mind, do not ask, why can't I forget? Ask instead, what within me still needs healing? Because once the heart is healed, the mind finally rests. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to remain in it forever, yet some people leave impressions so deep that their presence continues long after they are gone. When a person keeps returning to your thoughts, understand this clearly. Their role may have been to teach you, not to stay with you. We often confuse emotional impact with permanence. Just because someone changed you does not mean they were meant to walk beside you for life. Some people are chapters, some people not the entire book. And chapters end not because they were meaningless, but because their purpose was fulfilled. The mind revisits these people because lessons demand reflection. Growth rarely happens in the moment. It happens later in silence, when we finally understand what an experience was trying to show us. That is when the teacher reappears, not in person, but in memory. Some teachers come to awaken you. They challenge your beliefs, stretch your limits, and disrupt your comfort. They may introduce you to love, ambition, courage, or self-respect in ways you had never known before. Once awakened, you cannot return to who you were, and that is their gift. Other teachers come to reveal your wounds. Through them, you see your fears, insecurities, and patterns clearly. They mirror what you need to heal. The pain they cause is not random. It points directly to places within you that require attention. Pain becomes the lesson that forces growth. These people often leave abruptly or painfully. That is because lessons rarely end gently. When the teaching is complete, the connection changes, sometimes through distance, conflict, or separation. The ending itself becomes part of the lesson, teaching acceptance, surrender, or strength. The mistake many people make is trying to turn a lesson into a lifetime. They chase the person, replay conversations, and imagine different endings. But the mind keeps bringing them back, not to pull you backward, but to push you forward with understanding. Every lesson asks a question: what did this experience teach me about myself? Did it show me my worth? Did it teach me boundaries? Did it reveal my capacity to love or my need to love myself more? Until these questions are answered, the mind revisits the teacher. Teaching relationships often feel intense. They burn quickly and deeply because intensity accelerates learning. Calm connections feel safe, but intense ones feel transformative. That transformation is the reason the memory stays alive. Once you extract the lesson, the emotional attachment begins to loosen. Gratitude replaces confusion. Clarity replaces longing. You no longer ask, why did this happen to me? You begin to say, no, I understand why this happened for me. Understanding does not mean erasing the person. It means honoring their role without holding on to their place. You can appreciate the lesson without reopening the chapter. So when someone turns to your thoughts again and again, ask yourself not whether they belong in your future, but what wisdom they left behind. Because once the lesson is learned, the teacher quietly steps back and you move forward stronger, wiser, and free. When a person continues to occupy space in your mind long after the connection has changed or ended, understand this clearly. Emotional attachment is not always about love. It is often about unfinished inner work. The attachment is a mirror reflecting something within you that is still seeking clarity, closure, or growth. Attachment forms when emotions are stronger than understanding. In the beginning, we connect through feeling, not awareness. We bond through hope, validation, security, or belonging. When that bond breaks or shifts before inner balance is established, the attachment remains active inside us. Many people believe attachment means weakness, but in truth, attachment is information. It reveals where you invested emotionally without fully knowing yourself. It highlights areas where you may have depended on someone else to provide what you had not yet learned to give yourself. Sometimes that the attachment is rooted in validation. That person made you feel chosen, valued, or important. When they left, the feeling left with them. The mind then clings to the person, believing they were the source of that worth. But the real work is learning to reclaim that value from within. Other times, the attachment is tied to identity. You became a version of yourself in that connection, more confident, more expressive, or more alive. When the relationship ended, it felt like losing a part of yourself. The attachment remains because you have not yet integrated that version of you into your independent life. Unfinished inner work also appears through fear. Fear of being alone, fear of abandonment, or fear of starting over. The mind holds onto familiar pain rather than facing unknown growth. Attachment becomes a way to avoid the discomfort of transformation. This is why emotional attachments feel so powerful. They are not only about the person, they are about what they represented. Security, belonging, purpose, or hope. Until you develop these qualities internally, the attachment seeks external reminders. The mind replays memories not to trap you, but to guide you towards self-examination. What need was met through them that I have not met myself? What boundary did I ignore? What truth did I compromise? These questions reveal where inner work remains incomplete. Healing attachment does not mean forcing yourself to forget. It means shifting the source of fulfillment. When you begin to meet your own emotional needs, the attachment loosens naturally. You no longer seek externally what you have learned to provide internally. Inner work requires honesty. It asks you to sit with discomfort, to acknowledge dependency, to confront old patterns, and to rewrite them consciously. This process is not quick, but it is transformative. Every moment of awareness weakens the attachment's grip. As you grow, you begin to see the person more clearly, not as a savior or loss, but as a participant in your journey. Gratitude replaces longing. Understanding replaces obsession. And the emotional charge fades. So when emotional attachment keeps pulling your thoughts back to someone, do not fight it. Listen to it. It is pointing you inward. Complete the inner work, and the attachment will release you gently, leaving behind strength, self-trust, and emotional freedom. When a single person keeps returning to your thoughts again and again, understand this deeply. Your mind is not distracting you, it is directing you. Growth does not begin when the thoughts stop. It begins when you finally listen to what those thoughts are asking you to face. Most people try to escape recurring thoughts. They stay busy, seek noise, scroll endlessly, or tell themselves to move on. But avoidance only strengthens repetition. The mind raises its voice when it feels ignored. What you resist persists. What you understand transforms. Thoughts are not random stories. They are questions. They ask you to examine your choices, your boundaries, your self-worth, and your emotional patterns. When one person becomes the focus of repeated thought, it is because they are connected to a truth you have not yet fully confronted. Sometimes the truth is painful. It may be that you accepted less than you deserved. It may be that you ignored red flags because you feared loneliness. It may be that you abandoned your own needs to keep a connection alive. Growth requires the courage to look at these truths without self-blame. Other times, the truth is empowering. That person may remind you of your capacity to love deeply, to feel intensely, to open your heart fully. Perhaps you discovered strength, clarity, or purpose through that experience. Growth means reclaiming those qualities without needing the person attached to them. Listening to your thoughts does not mean obeying them. It means understanding their message. There is a difference between awareness and action. You can acknowledge a thought without letting it control your behavior. This is emotional maturity. Growth also requires forgiveness, not always for the other person, but for yourself. Forgiving yourself for what you didn't know then, for choices made from survival rather than wisdom. Self-forgiveness quiets the mind because it removes the need for punishment through repetition. As you listen honestly, patterns begin to emerge. You see how similar dynamics repeat in different relationships. You recognize where fear leads your decisions and where self-respect should lead instead. This awareness is the foundation of change. Facing your thoughts often means sitting in silence. Silence reveals what noise hides. In stillness, you hear your own voice clearly. You begin to separate memory from meaning, emotion from identity. You realize that thoughts are visitors, not masters. Growth happens when you respond differently, when you stop romanticizing pain, when you stop chasing closure outside of yourself, when you stop confusing familiarity with destiny. These shifts happen internally long before they show externally. Eventually, the thoughts change in tone. They become less emotional, less frequent, less heavy. Not because you forced them away, but because you answered the question they carried. Understanding dissolves obsession. So when your mind keeps returning to one person, see it as an invitation to evolve. Face what needs facing, learn what needs learning, release what needs releasing. Because once the lesson is integrated, growth completes its work and peace takes its place. When one person keeps returning to your mind, it is not a mistake and it is not a weakness. It is an invitation to pause, to reflect, and to look inward with honesty and compassion. Your thoughts are not trying to pull you back into the past. They are guiding you toward understanding. Every repeated thought carries a message. Sometimes it points to healing that has not yet happened. Sometimes it reveals lessons that have not yet been accepted. Sometimes it shows you where you gave too much, settled for less, or forgot your own worth. Until these truths are faced, the mind continues to remind you. Not everyone who stays in your that belongs in your life. Some people remain in memory because they changed you, awakened you, or taught you something essential about yourself. Once you recognize their role, you no longer need to hold onto them emotionally. Growth happens when you stop asking why they left and start asking what you learned. Healing happens when you stop resisting the memory and start understanding it. Freedom comes when you reclaim the power you once gave away. So listen to your thoughts, not with fear, but with awareness. Complete the inner work they are pointing toward. And when the lesson is learned, your mind will rest, your heart will soften, and you will move forward lighter, wiser, and at peace.